Welcome to the Brandy Show, Conversations With. The idea for this type of show came from the very concept of podcasts. They're available to anyone at any time since they stay posted on the internet portal indefinitely. Podcasts that are time sensitive, that deal with issues of the day are fine, but after a month or so, they can be out of date. Taking advantage of the technology, it made sense to create a program podcast that would last. It's as current the day it is posted to 6 months or a year from now. Hope you like our series. Thanks for stopping by. Today, my conversation is with MSU basketball legend and national champion Gregory Kelser. Greg is one of those guys you can't help but like. I covered him during his days at Michigan State when I was working in Lansing, Jackson. I followed him to the NCAA title with his teammate Earvin Magic Johnson. From there, Kelser went to the NBA as a top pick of the Pistons. After 3 stops in the NBA, he came back to his home state, where he's carved out a wonderful career in broadcasting as the Pistons analyst on TV broadcasts. In my opinion, he's a hometown hero, one of Detroit's finest citizens and state's favorite sons. Here's my conversation with Gregory Kelser. From Henry Ford High School in Detroit, Greg, you went on to Michigan State, won a national championship, and then to the NBA, 4th pick overall. Played in the NBA. Now you're back home broadcasting your hometown Detroit Pistons. Basketball's been pretty good to you.
You know, Jim, it really has. I feel very fortunate because I say it all the time. The game owes you nothing. We play it. We play it for the enjoyment. And for the lucky few, the blessed, the fortunate few, you may get a chance to parlay that into an opportunity to get an education because of the game. And then for the even fewer lucky or blessed, you might get a chance to earn a living with it for a while. So, it all started with enjoyment, playing it in the backyard, playing it in the playgrounds and that sort of thing. But it has been wonderful, wonderful for me, no question.
Hey, and you're talking to a guy who's got the same thing going. When I think about my career, it is my association with the University of Michigan at football that has gotten to me where I am now, and I can never thank the game enough. And I know that you feel the same way, great relationships over the years. The thing I'd like to start with for you is, out of high school, you came out of Henry Ford, and you decided, I'm going to go to Michigan State. Why did you make that decision?
I remember when Michigan State began recruiting me, and it was kind of odd because I was at Henry Ford. We were playing in a Christmas tournament at Northwestern High School, which was one of the premier athletic schools in the whole state of Michigan back in the mid-'70s, and they had great athletes in all sports. I mean, it was really, if you played for Northwestern, you had to be good. So we were playing them in their Christmas tournament, and they had Alan Hardy, who at the time was one of the best players in the country, and a lot of scouts were after him. And, of course, they were on hand for that game, and it gave me an opportunity for exposure that I really had not received yet. The biggest school that I had been recruited by up to that point, and this would be like December of my senior year of high school, was the University of Minnesota, which was also a fine basketball program. And I had already taken a visit to Minnesota, enjoyed it, and was thinking highly of them and possibly becoming a Golden Gopher. But Michigan State was one of the schools on hand for the Christmas tournament at Northwestern, and I really, really, really played well. And off of that, they began recruiting me. I got a chance to meet Gus Kanakis. My family got a chance to meet Gus Kanakis. My father and Gus hit it off extremely well because he's a great man, as you well know, a wonderful man. And they grew an immediate bond because my father was a retired Air Force military man, and I remember I started playing basketball as a 10-year-old. We were stationed in Okinawa, and of course, Coach Kanakis was a World War II veteran who fought in the Battle of Okinawa. So There was a bond there that was almost immediate. We loved him. My mother, we all really, really enjoyed Coach and Vernon Payne, who was his assistant. They were very active in my recruitment. So the number one contender very, very quickly.
And Greg, you know what about Gus? And I think this is the time to talk about it. Gus was a dear friend of our family because we grew up in East Lansing, and he coached my brother Art to the state basketball championship in the state of Michigan when he was a high school coach. And as a head coach at Michigan State, he was a guy, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but was set the foundation by recruiting you, Earvin and Jay, and some of the other great players that came in the late 70s to kind of set the table for Judd and now Tom Izzo. I think Gus should get the credit for being some of that foundation that has seen Michigan State basketball flourish for the last 40 years.
He was the one who got it started. He had a vision, and he shared that vision with my parents and myself. He talked about recruiting me in 1975. He talked about trying to get Stuart House out of Denby High School, who was one of the top-rated big men in the country at that time. And then a year later, signing Earvin Johnson out of Lansing Everett. And he felt that with that, we would be able to possibly contend and even win a national championship. That was his dream. That was his goal. And he said, Greg, you're going to start it off for us. So it really sounded good. It sounded wonderful, in fact. And I bought in. My family, we all bought in.
Well, and it turned out, it turned out really well too, didn't it? Hey, Greg,
it turned out very well, except unfortunately, Coach didn't get a chance to realize it as our head coach. I played 1 year for Coach Kanakis, but I used to tell him all the time that he's one of the three most important men in my life. My father, my grandfather, and Coach Kanakis.
Yeah, we lost Gus in 2019, and I know our family lost a dear friend and a great man, and so did Michigan State University. But the one thing, again, you talked about, he set this table for Judd Heathcote and now Tom Izzo. But when you were a junior in college, Gus went out and recruited Earvin Johnson out of Lansing Everett and Jay Vincent out of Lansing Eastern. I was covering high school basketball in Lansing at that time, working for Channel 10. And did you know as a junior when Earvin signed up that something special could happen, Greg?
Actually, I knew it before then.
Did you really?
I got a chance to see him play.
Uh-huh.
Oh, yeah. I don't think there are very many people that could say they saw Earvin play as a 10th or 11th grader and not come away incredibly impressed.
Well, I watched him as an 11th grader, and I said to myself, "There's a man playing with a bunch of kids. He was that special."
Yeah. Oh yeah, I got the same impression, and I felt that as an 11th grader, he could have played at Michigan State right then, and started. Whichever team, he was that good, and he was always ahead of his time. I mean, when he was in high school, he could have easily played college ball. When he was in college, as we would find out, he could easily play in the NBA. I remember Judd Heathcote. He made a comment about Earvin when Earvin was a freshman. He said he is the best passer in basketball. He says, and I'm not talking about college basketball. I'm talking about all of basketball.
Greg, I remember.
So right there, he was putting him ahead of everybody.
I remember that quote. It got into the newspaper, I think the Lansing State Journal, and it created quite a stir. And Judd never backed off from it. He said, NBA, college, you name it, he's the best passer I've ever seen.
Imagine how fortunate I felt, how lucky, how blessed I felt to be able to team with someone like that.
Yeah.
I remember when he signed, and now, once he signed, of course, we had Jay Vincent, who's another person who doesn't get enough credit for his role in turning Michigan State basketball around. But when the two of those guys signed to play at Michigan State, the longest wait I ever endured as an athlete was that 6-month, 7-month period between them signing and then, of course, the spring and the summer before we could eventually get on the basketball court in October of 1977. I mean, every day I would dream about what it's going to be like to
I can imagine that. And the other thing, too,
pass.
Greg, went in 77, 78, when they were both freshmen, you guys had gone through that weight. You came out and you went to almost to the Final Four in 78. And again, with these two freshmen, you were the Fab 3 or 4 before there was the Fab 5 at Michigan, because they led you to Kentucky. And you've said before that, that year we could have won too.
I've always felt that way. I really have. I've always felt that way. That Kentucky team that we played was a great college basketball team. And if memory serves me, they were number one the whole year. They only lost 2 games, but the 2 games that they lost were spread out, and I believe there were circumstances that were such that maybe when they lost one of those games, the second ranked team must have lost, so they didn't lose their spot. I don't think they lost their spot each time. I think they were in the end ranked number 1. And when we faced them in Dayton, Ohio, in the regional finals, we believed we could win. We'd only lost 4 games all year. They'd lost 2. We just felt like we could compete with anybody. And it played out that way for most of the game. We had a 5-point lead at halftime. We scored the first basket in the second half to go up 7. Now, of course, that's not insurmountable, but we were pretty good at holding leads. We were pretty good, especially against non-conference teams that weren't familiar with us. The 2 years I played with Earvin, we only lost 3 non-conference games. And one was at Syracuse, one was at North Carolina, and then, of course, that regional final to Kentucky. The score of that game has been seared into my brain. We lose 52-49. And I remember coming away in disbelief that we would only score 49 points in a basketball game. We were averaging close to 80.
With that team and the talent, that is an amazing number. You just can't imagine that.
If you told me we would hold Kentucky to 52 points, I thought we'd win by 20.
You'd win by 20 easy.
But it was a tempo game, and a lot was learned in that game. I think by Coach Heathcote, certainly us. We played Kentucky's game. We played their tempo. We slowed it down. Coach was conservative. We didn't run. We tried to nurse the little lead that we had, and that played to our detriment when it was all over. And that's why we only scored 49 points.
Yeah.
When we would get in the tournament the next year, there was never any putting on the brakes.
No, you were full gas pedal to the floor that year. And in 1979, you won the national championship. And Greg, let's get to the game against Indiana State, which many people feel is one of the great college games of all time and really changed college basketball. But let's first go to the fact that you got to that championship game, and when you won it, I've heard you say it was a relief, which to me is kind of amazing, because you'd think if you win the championship, you're so elated and so excited to get there and all that other stuff. But you said it's a relief because you expected to be there, and to not be there and not win would have been a failure.
Well, the pressure was definitely on us, coming close the year before. And then 1978-79 started off with us going to Brazil to play in the Governor's Cup tournament in South America. And we were playing some really good competition there. Brazil, their national team was one of the best amateur teams in the world at that time. And we went there representing Michigan State, of course, but maybe even more importantly, representing the United States. We wore United States red, white, and blue uniforms for that tournament. We were the United States. We were not Michigan State. So
that had to be.
That went in.
I was going to say that'd be a great experience.
It really was. It was like the Olympics. It was like being at the Olympics. And so we played in that tournament, and we actually beat Brazil in the championship game. It was a double overtime win, but it gave us the belief that, okay, if we can beat them and they're ranked, number 3 in the world, we should be able to beat anybody back home collegiately. And then we started our year off playing an exhibition game against the Russians at Genesis Fieldhouse. The Russians had been going from college to college, beating every team in the country. All the top-ranked teams were losing to these guys. And we beat them by 16 points in Genesis Fieldhouse. So that only served to fortify our belief that we're good, and that if we stay healthy and we get a few breaks, that we can win a national championship. So, yeah, our expectations were sky high. We felt like we should and would win a national championship. Now, that's a 4 or 5 month process that you go through. When you go through that process and it has the ups and downs, the ebbs and flows that our season had, and then you eventually do, in fact, get to the championship game, and if you're fortunate enough to win it, it's probably going to be more relief than jubilation at the beginning. It becomes jubilation, a little while after, when you start doing the parade and having the banquet, and you go out on the speaking circuit a little bit and talk about it. Yeah, there's jubilation there. But our initial reaction or experience in Salt Lake City, Utah, the night after we won, was relief. We did it, and now let's get some rest. And that was the sentiment of every guy on the team.
That's amazing. The other thing about that game, and I don't know whether you can react to this or not, but after it was over, because of Larry Bird, because of Earvin, and that quote-unquote one-on-one matchup, which really wasn't, it was a team game, it became bigger than life. Did you know at the time when you were playing that this was a game that, in essence, would change kind of college basketball? Or did you just go out there saying, we're going to win the championship, I don't care who's playing on the other side, and I don't care what ramifications it has?
No, we didn't realize it at the time that it would go on to become a game that keeps its relevance, its shelf life. We knew we were playing a good basketball team. We knew we were playing a team that was undefeated. We knew we were playing a team that had a superstar in Larry Bird and some very good players in support of him. We knew that. We knew it was going to be a huge challenge, and we knew we had to play well. We couldn't just show up.
And I think, too, Judd Heathcote did such an unbelievable job. You guys frustrated Larry Bird, didn't you? You could sense that on the floor, couldn't you?
We prepared really, really well for him. We didn't have long to prepare for him because we won our semifinal games on Saturday. The championship game was 2 days later, so neither team had a whole lot of time to prepare for the other. But we always felt like that played to our benefit. That's why I say, in terms of non-conference opponents, we fared pretty well in the 2 years that Earvin and I played together. We were 51-11, I believe, over those 2 years, and 8 of the losses
pretty strong
were conference losses.
Yeah.
8 of the losses were in the conference, and 7 of them were on the road. Only one team beat us in East Lansing those last 2 years. Guess which one?
Did they reside up
Michigan.
the road in
Michigan.
Ann Arbor?
Yeah, exactly. Michigan. I'll never forget Mark Loser.
Yep.
At the buzzer for 2. So we were ready to go. We were ready to play against Indiana State. And to answer your question, I'm glad that it was them instead of DePaul or anybody else, because it would not have the same significance. And of course, the thing that added luster, appeal, and shelf life, and Larry would take that as a start, as a springboard, a stepping stone, and parlay it into a magnificent rivalry in the NBA. The 2 of them have been credited for helping save the league, because they came in at the same time with a new approach to basketball, and it centered around unselfishness, passing, fire, intensity, competition, and ultimately just winning over individualism and that sort of thing. And maybe that's what their league needed at that very time, and those 2 provided it for a decade. So that certainly did not hurt the appeal and luster of that game. That started it all.
Yeah, clearly you were a part of that seminal moment, which changed college basketball to some degree, and then moved on and changed the NBA with Larry and Earvin moving on to create what they did years later. But now let's go to Judd Heathcote. Again, Judd was one of those coaches. We got to know him. Great technical and fundamental coach. Unbelievable personality. Didn't look like he was having much fun, but man, could that guy coach basketball.
Coach Heathcote was a genius. There's no doubt about that in my mind. He understood the game. He understood the importance of teamwork. He had his own unique way of motivating, no question about that. It wasn't for everybody, but he knew how to get you ready for an opponent. He knew how to get you ready for a game. He knew how to help you reach heights that you probably would not have without the proper coaching. And the thing that I really appreciated about Coach Heathcote was that he didn't play mind games and head games with you. Some coaches do. Coach Heathcote would tell you right up front what he expects, what he wants out of you, and what you have to do in order to be a part of his team, to be in his lineup, and to be successful. He didn't waver from that at all. If you were supposed to be out there playing, you were out there playing. Now, of course, if you did something that was of detriment to the program, he would always say, no one is bigger than the program. If you did something that was hurtful to the program, you would have some consequences. But as far as yanking guys in and out of the lineup, messing around with your minutes, he didn't do those things. He did not do those things. He would challenge you. He would get you angry at him sometimes. But I'm sure the guy you played for up there in Ann Arbor did the same thing.
I was just going to say, Judd's, you're describing Judd as I would describe Coach Schembechler. And he did the same thing. He took you to places you never thought you could go. He knew what buttons to push to make you as good as you could possibly be. And Judd, of course, was followed by Tom Izzo, who I know you like and love, and you're glad he's at Michigan State. And he was an assistant for Judd. Tell you a story. When Bo used to see Tom, because he loved Tom Izzo, he told Izzo, he said, Izzo, your problem? And Tom would look at him and say, what? He says, you're a basketball coach who should be coaching football. And Izzo didn't disagree with him.
Well, you know what? He took it as a compliment. I remember Coach Schembechler telling me one time, in that scruffy voice, Kelser, you would have been a great Wolverine. and that was the ultimate compliment. I mean, you didn't get any better than that coming from the ultimate Wolverine.
No, you're absolutely right
about that. For him to say something like that,
that had to be pretty strong for you.
Oh, it was, because I know how the regard in which he holds that program, and that's not something he would just say to anybody, and he certainly wouldn't say it if he didn't mean it. So no, that was a compliment from him that I'll never forget.
Yeah, I guarantee you he meant it.
But Coach Heathcote was great, and it was good for me. It wasn't easy transitioning from Gus Ganakis to Coach Heathcote at all, and I'm sure the guys that were called to do that would echo my sentiments, my thoughts here. It wasn't easy at all. They were two vastly different personalities, and their ways of going about doing their jobs couldn't have been more extreme. Or couldn't have been any more different ends of the spectrum. I'm thankful and I am happy that I got a chance to play for both of them because I learned a lot from both.
Oh, absolutely.
And it was just a handing off of the baton. Coach Ganakis got me started. He put me in the starting lineup. The first game I came off the bench my first 3 games at Michigan State as a freshman, and I played really well. The 4th game, I was in the starting lineup for the rest of my career. And that 4th game, we just happened to be playing Northern Michigan and Tom Izzo.
Is that right? Isn't it amazing how fate and, whatever it is, the stars are aligned and things like that happen? There's a connection in athletics that somehow you look back and you go, that's amazing, but it happens so often, it can't be that amazing, can it?
Who who knew? I mean, who knew
Yeah.
that? Who knew that would what that would ultimately turn into? But you're absolutely right. It does. It happens all the time. You just never, ever know.
Hey,
and the other thing about sports that I always say, and I tell kids this who attend my basketball camps and such, sports brings people together.
Oh, no question.
It breaks down barriers and bridges and that sort of thing, and it has a way of doing that. I competed 4 years at Michigan State, and one of my greatest nemesis, and a guy I could not stand to play against, and he didn't like me and I didn't like him, but we knew each other only as competitors, and that was Phil Hubbard. Well, Phil Hubbard and I, Phil, of course, a great All-American from Michigan, Olympian, all that. We could not stand each other. But then we both get drafted by the same team in the NBA. We get to know each other on a personal level. And now Phil is a great friend.
And I was going to say, and Phil's as good a human being as you're going to find out there. But he would also compete now. I mean, that's the whole deal.
Oh, you better bring your lunch.
Yes, exactly.
And you're going against Phil Hubbard. You're going to be there a while. There's no backing down.
Yeah,
that's how sports are. Sports can be.
It is. It's a great thing. Some people that don't get to experience it, I sometimes feel sorry for them. And I try to tell them, and all of us try to, I think, relate to them how important sports is, not just for you as an athlete to achieve, but for you personally and right. Socially. Those things are invaluable, the lessons you learn. Go back. You got drafted in 79 in round 1 of the NBA draft, 4th overall by the Detroit Pistons, your hometown team. And you talked about the difference between Judd and Gus. And you walk into the NBA, and now you got Dick Vitale for the Detroit Pistons. How did that transition go?
Well, again, it was one of those things where you've got to adjust to a different style of coaching, of being taught and being pushed. Now, I didn't get a chance to play for Dick Vitale. He coached 12 games in my rookie year and was let go. But I was very familiar with him because he recruited me when he was at the University of Detroit. So he recruited me out of high school. I got a chance to know him, and I admired Coach Vitale, and I liked him. I would have loved to have been able to finish the year at least with him. I was not happy to see him lose his job. It was his dream job at the time. But that really, for me, served as another reminder that basketball at its highest levels is a business. It really is. I was most disappointed when Coach Giannakis was let go after my first year at Michigan State, and then I had to make the adjustment to someone new who I was not familiar with and who certainly did not know me. Now it was pretty much the same thing happening all over again in my first year in the NBA. You lose the coach who drafts you, who believes in you, and now you got to make the change to someone else. I will say this. In watching Dick Vitale lose his job, be awfully down about it, didn't know exactly what direction he was going to go in, and then to see him rebound and find something else and become really good, really great at something else was also inspiring, because when my career was over after 6 years in the NBA, I was challenged with doing the same thing. What now? Thankfully, I was able to find something else. Of course, I kind of realized and recognized what I wanted to do a little earlier in my pro basketball career. So I had an idea of what I wanted to do. I started studying the framework for that. But, still, it can be very devastating sometimes when you have to leave what you truly love and then do something else. So in many ways, I would have to say that, Coach Vitale's story and transition to his something else was inspiring, and I sort of followed that same path.
Well, and you've done a great job at it now, broadcasting Detroit Pistons basketball with George Blaha, Hall of Famer. And I want to stay with your basketball career real quick, because you got traded in 81 from Detroit to Seattle for Vinny Johnson, believe it or not, the microwave, who, of course, came to the Pistons and helped win NBA championships. But I would imagine when you went to Seattle, you had your best success, and your coach out there was Lenny Wilkins. And Greg, I've heard nothing but glowing stories about Lenny Wilkins and the kind of guy he was and the kind of coach he was.
I felt very fortunate to go to Seattle and have an opportunity to be coached by him, by this legend, who had also won a championship, coached the Sonics to a championship. Same year we won the NCAA championship. He won an NBA championship with the Sonics, and they had a lot of great players there. And I got a chance for the first time to experience winning at the NBA level, because we didn't win in Detroit when I was there. We were not a very good basketball team. We were young, we were inexperienced, and you don't win in the NBA with that. But there was plenty of experience in Seattle, and I got a chance to get to the playoffs and enjoy all of that, playing with some great players, some all-star players. It was fun. And I love the city of Seattle. Absolutely love the city of Seattle to this day. I didn't want to get traded, because when I got traded, I felt like the Pistons were starting to turn the corner. We had drafted Isaiah Thomas. We had acquired a few other players. And now I thought we were poised to win games here. And after spending 2 seasons not winning, I wanted to be a part of the turnaround. It would be like playing at Michigan State for 2 years and enduring, and then you sign Earvin and you sign Jay and a few others, and then you have to leave there and go someplace else while that program carries on without you. Well, it's sort of what it felt like getting traded by the Pistons out to Seattle. But Benny Johnson was disgruntled in Seattle. He wasn't playing very much. He wanted to be traded. So Detroit felt like they could use his talents here. Lenny Wilkins felt like they could use my talents as a small forward there. So the trade was consummated. Benny and I, ironically, were in the same draft 2 years earlier. I was taken 4th. He was taken 6th. If I had not been taken by the Pistons, we had good word that I would have been taken by Seattle. So kind of guess ended up where I was supposed to go anyway, or was going to go anyway.
And Greg, one question about making the transition from the collegiate level to the professional level to the NBA. You're a broadcaster, talent, both games. What's the difference, the big difference between the collegiate game and those guys in the NBA?
Physically, there's a big difference, because guys in the NBA are strong, they're big, they're matured body-wise for the most part, and they're extremely talented. There are, as you climb the ladder, as you go from one level to the next, there is a major shaving off of the excess. And by the time you get to the NBA, that's the best of the best. So you're not exploiting too many weak links in the chain at that level, because everybody can play. It's not easy becoming a professional athlete. And when you reach that pinnacle, you have to be ready every single day or night, because you're playing against talent that is equal to, or in some cases exceeds, your own. It doesn't get any better, and certainly doesn't get any tougher.
Yeah, I've always told people, when I was doing that National Football League games, they asked me the difference between the collegiate game and the pro game, and I said, look, when you play in the NFL, every guy out there is Top Gun. Every guy.
That's right.
And it's a little different when you're at the collegiate level, and it's the same in the NBA, isn't it?
It's the exact same. It's the best of the best. And it was an honor to be part of that, to be regarded as one of the best professional basketball players, one of the best basketball players in the world, because at that time, and even now, the best play in the NBA, the best play in the NBA. So to be in the NBA, it says a lot. Now, the other part, that's the physical part. Now, the other part, obviously, is the maturity in your attitude. You want to stay in the NBA, you have to be willing to work very hard at getting better. And if you look at the best of the best, they all keep getting better. They add something. They don't rest on their laurels. They're highly motivated to stay on top. And you have to be able to match that in some way if you're going to stick around. There are so many. Even now, the average NBA career is like 3 years. And we say, well, what do you mean 3 years? Well, because for every 10-year career, every 15-year career, there's a dozen 1-year careers. So it brings the average down. There are a lot of 2-year careers because certain times guys get to that level and they get complacent. They feel like they've arrived. They see that even more so now with some of the money that young players are able to make. That could be as big a distraction as anything. I always say the best are the ones that can put the money aside. Yes, a business, you want to get paid as much as you possibly can. Go back to your roots. Your roots would show you that you played the game for nothing. You played the game for the love, for the competition, and you wanted to get better and better so that you could play against the best.
From the NBA, now you're talking about the game as a broadcaster. How do you like that? I mean, this is a great business to be in, isn't it?
It really is. It really is. I love what I do. And you're speaking about broadcasting, right?
Absolutely.
Jim, I know I'm fortunate, and you're fortunate. You know, your tenure in the NFL, your affiliation with your alma mater now, and to be able to sit where you sit and sit where you've sat for as long as you have is certainly nothing that you take for granted.
No.
You have to look at it and feel a great sense of pride, but also a great sense of appreciation for the opportunity because it's a limited field.
It is.
And there's when folks get these spots, they have a tendency sometimes to hold on to them for a long time. There's not a whole lot of turnover. So to have one and to have the opportunity is really a gift. It's a true blessing. And so I feel very fortunate.
Yeah, I've always said, and it's an old saying, if you have a job you love, you won't work a day in your life. And I tell people,
that's right.
I tell people, I'm guilty of that. I know you feel the same way because you love basketball, you love the Pistons, you're in your hometown. The situation doesn't get any better than this for you, does it?
It doesn't. So what I try to do, I try to treat it with as much respect and appreciation as I possibly can. And in doing that, I work hard still. I still have great passion for it. I feel very fortunate. Every time I go out there, I pinch myself because this is doing what I absolutely want to do. And when I get a chance to talk to youngsters, I talk to them about that. Try to use your education in this time in your life right now to figure out what you want to do, and then do it to the absolute best of your ability. Choose what you want to do. You have that opportunity right now through education to choose what you want to do. And just like you said, if you choose it, if you end up doing what you choose to do, what you really love to do, what you're passionate about, it won't feel like work, and you won't have a hard time getting up in the morning to go do it. That's that to me is the ultimate for everybody. And knowing the competition for these few spots, especially in the sports that we play, there's always somebody who just retired, some star player who just retired, who now wants to do this, who wants to broadcast, and they get those opportunities a lot. So I just figured, I can't control that, but what I can control is how hard I work and the passion that I have. Hopefully that will carry the day for me. And so far, 34 years now, 34 years, it's been holding up pretty well.
It has indeed. Greg, when you came out of college, they called you Special K. You are still Special K. Thank you so much for joining us. And I look forward to seeing you down the road, maybe playing golf, maybe hanging out. But, gosh, you're a credit to Michigan State, everything you do in the Detroit Pistons and all of that. So we appreciate you joining us on Conversations With.
Well, Jim, anytime. And I want to say that, what you just said about me, thank you. It's generous. It's very kind of you. But I feel the exact same way about you and how you've gone on to represent the University of Michigan. And whenever I see you, you always have a great smile, something really nice to say. You project positivity all the time. I think you're a wonderful, wonderful person and an inspiration for many. And thank you for allowing me to be on your show.
Okay, Greg. Not many people are going to hear me say this ever, but for you, I'll do it. Go green.
Go blue.
Greg's quite a guy. And I'll say go green to him anytime he wants. I respect and like him that much. They don't come along much nicer, much better, and as accomplished an athlete as Special K. Keep an eye out for more Conversations With by checking my Facebook page, Jim Brandstatter 76, or my Twitter account @JimBrandstatter, or the website, thebrandyshow.com.